crowd here today. Today, our aim is to go through kind of just your priorities or your suggestions on how we emphasize our report to County Council. And I welcome you all here today. Holly's going to lead us as always as we go through the meeting today. So Holly, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Yay, good to see you all. It just feels like yesterday. Okay, we got it was weird because I actually did forget to rename myself. I realized how totally dependent I am on the slide that says rename yourself. So for people who have the same short memory that I do, go ahead and rename yourselves and we will get started. I'm so glad you guys could all make it. Thanks for coming today. Okay, Kathy, I've got it. We've just got a few slides to get us started and then we'll jump right in. So Barry is actually going to give us a little bit more information about kind of where we are in the process. Well, I'll start and then he'll pick it up in terms of where we are in our overall process and what we're getting ready for on February 7th. And then the whole group, we're going to brainstorm ideas for what we think is the most important things for council to hear from us. So next slide. So today, our idea is to just come up with, kind of what we're going to talk about to council. February 7th is the presentation, which will be Barry and Jack and Stephen will be presenting. And then the 21st of February is when when the council will be voting on a resolution to accept the report or adopt the report. So Kathy's working on with the planning team on figuring that out. And then the implementation plan begins. And so you may recall at our last SAC meeting, we talked a bit about that and how to make sure this thing really hits the ground running. So that's the plan. I see a couple folks who are still need to rename themselves, please. Yeah, righty. Next slide. So I'm going to turn it over to Barry, and maybe Barry, you can just kind of describe what we're aiming for overall.
Well, what we're really looking for today is to find out what in the report you want to emphasize and how you'd like to see it emphasized on February 7th. This is a kind of a two-step plan because we have the vote to accept. It won't be an approval because this report is what it is. And so along with that, on February 21st, we're going to have a framework, a much more defined framework of the implementation plan that we're working on as we go. And we're using the needs assessment report as our guiding North Star as we create the implementation plan. So the council will have a couple, 3 weeks to because we're sending it to them this week to digest the report. And then along with that, when the resolution comes to them on the 21st, it's going to have a lot more about next steps and how that's going to be accomplished. One of the things that we're certainly going to be doing during the next months is having a lot of public input and a lot of public process. We're going to have a number of workshops with the staff. We're going to have a number of focus groups with the groups that this group has identified. The BIPOC individuals that have been incarcerated and their families, and that list that we generated, we are going to keep that list in our focus as we continue going to the public. We're going to have a larger town hall style gathering probably in May before we approach, getting an ordinance to the council. And then we hope to have an ordinance to the council in early June that would take all this work and wrap it up into what we want to see on the ballot. So that's kind of the overview of the steps forward. We're still formulating, of course, how this implementation plan is going to look, but that's kind of we just wanted to keep you up to date on every step of the way so you know what we're doing. So.
Great. So Barry, do you want to, there's 2 more slides here that just help people ground in the needs assessment report. Do you want to do those?
Sure. Today, what we want to do is make sure that we're framing our ideas and our emphasis around the needs assessment report. We don't want to stray away and do something that's outside of that. So we want to do is keep it very focused on that North Star as I described. Y'all did such intense work on this plan. We want to make sure that it is our guiding principle as we go forward.
Great. So here's the table of content, just to remind people of kind of the key components of what's in the report, which is almost ready, almost finished. The formatting, it looks awesome. So just to make sure you remember what's in there. Look familiar? Yeah. Okay. Hi, Deborah. Glad you made it. We have one person still. If you could rename yourself, that'd be great. Okay. So that's it, gang. Really, this is a discussion with all of you. So again, it'll be Barry with Stephen and Jack, who are also here today to listen to your input on what do you think are the key points we need to make? Like what's the main message that we want the council to hear on February 7th? And, elements that you think should be highlighted. And those can be content related, those could be process related. So we're really looking to all of you, the wisdom of this group, to think about it from the council. We've been so deep into it, but what do you think from the council's perspective is going to be important to hear? And I was thinking that what I'd like to suggest in terms of process for today is we just do the good old, everyone has a chance to speak once before anybody speaks twice. Yeah. Okay. So, and again, SAC member who hasn't renamed themselves, do you need help? You click on the little blue buttons at the top where your SAC member name, it says SAC member. And then it'll give you a chance to rename yourself, or you can go down to the participants panel on the bottom. Okay, who wants to go ahead? What do you guys think? What do we want to make sure that they get? Yeah, Arlene. And I think you're muted.
I always forget. Forgive me for reversing this, because I know you want our opinion, but the truth is that the person probably who knows the most about the county council is Barry, because of his experience. And so I'm really anxious to hear what Barry needs us to focus on, because to be effective, we need to know what the council members are looking for, because we have many points to make that are really important. But what good is that, since they're the ones voting on this? And we need to frame our appeal in a brief and simple way, focusing on what they want. And my hunch would be that a major issue would be public safety. The value of the services that we are asking to expand and fill in the gaps are going to provide greater safety from criminal behavior and less people in the jails and more people in treatment. For example, increasing the mental health court and the drug court is going to divert people from going to jail and possibly getting recovery. So
thank you. That was super helpful. Hey, Kathy, will you just remove this other person who's there as just a unidentified SAC member? Everybody who's on the SAC knows how to rename themselves at this point. So SAC person, we're gonna go ahead and boot you off unless you can name yourself. Otherwise, you can come back on and name yourself. Okay. David.
I think
I believe Michael was next.
oh yeah.
Oh, Michael, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So I think what we should do is sort of create an overview that the county council could keep in mind,
Mhm.
rather than summarizing the recommendations, they're going to see the report. They don't need a summary. And the way I would frame it is one, I would use the theme that Arlene mentioned. This is about greater public safety. But also that these recommendations are meant to work together.
Mhm.
It's a balanced and comprehensive approach, and it's about far more than the jail. Now I'll do my commentary. I think the problem with the previous ballot measures is they were mostly about the jail.
Yeah.
This is the correction, right? Then rather than saying, hey, don't make the same mistake twice, maybe frame it more positively, make sure they understand that these are all meant to work together, that you don't have to pick every recommendation, but you have to pick from the range because they are meant to work together. That's how they work. And I'd have one more thing that I would mention, but I'll wait and come back when it's my turn.
Great. That's excellent. I'm glad we're recording this. You guys, the language that people are using is, I think, really helpful. And Marty's, of course, taking notes for us. I think David was next, and then Peter, you'll be after David.
I think one thing we need to emphasize as we present it to anyone is that this is a compromise, that we understand that like most of the stakeholders experience a crisis, whether it's a crisis of being victims of crime, whether it's a crisis of being stuck in jail or a mental health crisis, or whether it's a crisis at the jail itself. What's that?
Yeah, Kathy, we just heard your mic come on. Were you jumping in there?
No, my apologies.
No worries. Okay, go ahead. David.
And this was a real compromise, and that it is my belief that the Stakeholder Advisory Committee showed up as representatives of stakeholders, not as ourselves, and really came up with a compromise taking into account a bunch of stakeholders. And I hope that the council will hear who the stakeholders were, and this really is a rare moment where people from a wide political spectrum were able to come together and actually get something done. And that I think we can be proud of ourselves for having done that. And that it's really special in that way. And it's hopeful. And as with everything, I guess my final thing is that it is in our county a work in progress. That this is a step.
Thank you. That's great. Yeah, Peter.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I had a really interesting last couple of weeks. I've just talked to so many people across the broad spectrum of our political life here in Bellingham or in Whatcom County, and talking about our work. And not surprisingly, what I'm hearing is that people have other things to do and have not been paying close attention since 2017. Of course, they're paying attention when their house gets broken into or car gets broken into, or they see people on the street suffering mental health issues and without care. But they are going back to 2017, the last time this came up, as far as talking points, if they have strong opinions. And it just makes me think we should go back to the work that happened in those in the listening sessions and look for what it was that people were asking for. And I really want people to know that this community has bent over backwards, not only with this process that we've been involved with. We've been listening. We've got a really wide stakeholder advisory committee. We've been doing the hard work, but also this community has done so much since 2017 that I think that people were asking for, which is jail diversion efforts, that we see with LEAD, GRACE, all we put in a crisis stabilization center, we passed children's initiative, we did all these things. So anyway, those are my thoughts. I think that in introducing this to the county council, a review might be in order.
Oh, you guys are also smart. Okay, who's next? What do you think? Cliff, Kristen, Stark, Harry, Atul? Yeah, go ahead, Atul, and then Michael, let's see if we can get everybody to talk once before. But nice participation. Atul, go ahead, man. Let's hear it.
For me, one of the things that would be helpful is to identify to the county council all the new original input that went into the needs assessment process. Of course, David's right there next to me on the screen, and of course, I don't know, you weren't in the last meeting, but I spent my time complimenting how important the work you did was, okay, David. So you didn't get to hear that in person, but anyway, I want to. I think it'd be helpful for the council to identify all and what the new data that the SAC reviewed that came from outside the SAC. That'd be a helpful thing, I think.
Great, thank you. Okay, who's next? Yeah, Perry.
Just because of the involvement that I've had in my career and certainly within my work with Whatcom County, accentuation of the behavioral health component. I think that some of the statistics that we've talked about are truly important, and I would agree with others just in terms of bringing that information back just quickly so that it's fresh in council's mind. And then obviously very specifically the responses that the Stakeholder Advisory Committee has taken in regard to those. I think they're spot on just in regards to those individuals that have those needs and the attempts to put resources together in relation to diversion, obviously incarceration, etc. But that one stands out for me professionally. So I'm somewhat biased. I'll own that up front.
Yeah, I appreciate too the element you're bringing up about this is the information we got, and then this is how we responded. And I've heard that theme a little bit, like we got this input and this is how we responded. Yeah, that makes sense. Let's see, a couple more people. We have Kristen and Rebecca and Stark. Yeah, Stark, I just saw your hand go up. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, just really briefly, I think what needs to be stressed is how this approach is different than previous approaches has been, and that really this is not a proposal for a new jail. This is a proposal for a new approach to criminal justice, kind of from top to bottom. And that the jail is part of that, and it's a necessary part of that for public safety, and it's a necessary component of the system, but that what that facility will look like is very much dependent on a changing of the approach to these other things like behavioral health services and all the other things that people have talked about. And my recollection of when the jail failed, the main criticism, whether it was justified or not, was that people didn't want to just build a bigger facility to house more people, and that was one of the main reasons it failed and got voted down. And I think that we need to stress this time around that through the Incarceration Prevention Task Force and the efforts of this body, that the idea has been to create a new approach to lower the numbers for everybody, and that the size and the appearance of the jail will reflect that.
Thank you.
Holly, can I ask Stark a clarifying question?
Yeah.
Hi, Stark. Good to see you.
Hey.
I want to make sure I understand, and I'm pretty sure I do. So the way we communicate it's different. Is my recollection is similar to yours, that some people saw the previous efforts as sort of a behemoth jail with all the focus on money for a jail. And what we want to make clear is we brought these various positions, perspectives together, and through the efforts of both the task force, the SAC committee, and the Law Justice Council, are recommending significant changes intended to improve the justice system locally, with the jail being a piece of that, but not that being looked at in isolation, and that all of it has to be looked at holistically to be effective. And I would even go so far as to say that the budgets and the resources expended have to consider behavioral health alternatives and other things, and not just money in the jail. Have I captured what you're trying to say?
You have spot on. You know, I would go one step further though and say, you know, what the jail looks like will be dependent on, you know, whether these other programs are implemented. Because if you bring the numbers down, the jail doesn't have to be a supersized facility.
Absolutely.
So,
And Stark, you probably recall, that was the point Vera made 7 or 8 years ago. The number one determinant factor for the size of your jail is the policies that you adopt. That's the single, and that's why looking back at statistics, while interesting and somewhat informative, it's not like looking at a road and seeing how many people cross a bridge and making some policy decisions based on it, because the biggest factor is prospectively, what are our policies? Okay.
yeah, right.
Thank you.
Thanks. Cliff.
Yeah, I would just like to point out, kind of in response to Stark, that none of this process would have occurred had not the building failed. And so it's the failure of the building, the failure of, to some degree, the size of the facility. But there's so much inside, the jail doors failing, the elevator failing, all that brought to a head the fact that we need a new facility. And then a lot of the things that we've talked about in this process were to some degree available and used in the facility before it began to fail and became so crowded that we had to force out the programs just so we could house people. So yeah, you know, that's from my perspective. I think that, you know, a lot of these programs are important and necessary. I don't know that you're going to get the reduction in jail population that you're hoping for, because if you look at across the nation, people have been trying to figure out how do we get less people in jail. And I think society and their attitude towards crime and the reduction of absolutes in our communities has gone a long ways to cause some of the crime that we're seeing today. But again, it was the failure of the building that has brought all this other stuff to light.
Thank you. So we've had a couple people just join in. So what I'm going to do is ask Kathy to flash that discussion slide again. I'm going to start a stack here. So Arlene and Michael, I'm going to you can put down your hands. I'm starting a stack on paper here. So then I'll call on you after we've heard from everybody. So I see that Wendy's here and I think somebody else just joined too, but here we go. Key points that should be made in the presentation to council and elements of the needs assessment that should be highlighted. So again, Barry and Jack and Stephen are going to do the presentation, and we're trying to really set them up to make sure that that they're benefiting from the wisdom of this group in terms of how to focus their message in the time that we have. And Jack and Stephen, especially if you guys have things you want to say, you can you also can get your turn. Okay, so who do we have left? We have Kristen and Deborah and Rebecca. Are any of you ready to talk? Yeah, go ahead, Kristen.
I guess just because you called on me, I'll say something. But I think that the policies that were mentioned just now is really important, and the fact that this is a work in progress. A lot of the policies are you know, need to be examined. The executive branch policies, they're out of the hands of the legislature. You know, we could wish everything that we want, but the real changes that need to happen are with prosecutor's office and, you know, maybe some, you know, and with those diversion programs that could happen pre-charging, you know, that could maybe begin at that first 48 hours from the time of booking. You know, that there's ways that just the prosecutor's office really needs to get some programs going, and I'm not sure how to do it or anything like that, but that's how the numbers are going to get down. You know, we need a place to bring people in initially, and then they'll either, you know, get sorted out, do they mental health, this or that, but it's all got to happen pretty tight, you know, within the time, you know, the first couple 48 hours. But those are policy changes that we really need to see happen, or else a lot of this will be for naught. You know, everything will just feed the bloated system some more, kind of that's my thought. So it's important to really say we need those things to happen for real, like before our eyes. Sorry about that. And you know, just to also stress that we sorry about that, distraction there. You know, that we did work really hard to come together with some agreement and cohesiveness. So anyways, yeah.
Great, thank you. So we could emphasize, like, there are some really direct and immediate things that could happen that will be really helpful, and maybe give a taste of what those things would be. Yeah. Rebecca or Deborah, do either of you feel like speaking? And Rebecca, I'm not hearing anything yet, but I don't see that you're on mute. I don't know what it is. Volume? Maybe the volume on your computer? Oh, I heard like a very tiny thing. See if you can turn it up.
About that.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that. No, I think it's a balanced approach. I think that's what modern day criminal justice is. It's not lock everybody up, and it's not just give everybody a free pass. I do feel like right now there's a lot of free passes that maybe are not helping our public safety situation here in Bellingham. So that's why this is completely crucial that we get this right this time around.
Great, thank you. Deborah? If you don't want to speak, you don't have to. I'm not going to put
that's
you on
okay.
the
Can you hear me?
spot. Yeah.
Well, mainly I'm listening today, but I do have a few interjections from what I've heard so far. So what Stark Fulla said and Jack echoed, I just felt like that was just so on point as far as like the overarching goal of what we're trying to do here. And I just loved what he said about that it's not about just building a new jail. It's about, in my own words here, about, you know, changing the system or changing the approach. That's what the public, that's what the voters in Whatcom County are going to want to hear. And also what Kristen said about the importance of, I'll just put in my own words, I don't know how to say it tactfully, but the prosecutor's office being involved, because like what she said, if we don't see change in every part of the system, the prosecutor's office being like very critical, very crucial in this, it's going to maybe cause a roadblock is the only way I can think of describing it. And so that's my input.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay, Wendy, you're up.
Thank you. I'm really sorry I missed the first part of this. I was tied up in another meeting, but I'll try to keep it short. One of the things I'm hoping will weave through as the presentation is being made to the county council is that the jail very much is a reactive entity, that something can change either at a local level or state, or for that matter, a federal level, that will fundamentally make demands on jails that have never really existed before. Point to make at this point is an email that I received from WASPIC on Friday afternoon. Evidently, the governor's office is working with members of the state legislature to drop a bill that would come out probably sometime today that would shift responsibility for inpatient restoration treatment from just Western and Eastern State Hospital to county jails. And that they would have us establishing all of the different programs and that type of thing that are now facilitated in state psychiatric hospitals. Now, I don't know that this is going to make it out of committee. I have no idea whether the bill is going to succeed, but the state, based on the email that I got, is doing it because it's too expensive for the state to do it. So they're then transferring it. And these are inpatient restoration treatment. Our facility doesn't have the space to treat the people who are here and are being sanctioned or in custody for legal reasons that have to do with violating the law. I have some pretty strong opinions about us also having become an inpatient restoration center. I don't think that's appropriate for the offender. I certainly don't think it's appropriate for a jail. But that is one of the things that our council and the members of the public need to understand, is that we don't decide to a great extent who stays in jail. We have some control who is able to get into jail depending on circumstances. But that's one of the issues that we've had over the years, that a law changes at the state level and it can have this huge impact on the rest of the system. And so that's one of the reasons that you've heard myself and Caleb and some of the other folks talk about the need for flexibility, in addition to having all of the options available to improve the treatment that we can provide here and make sure there are educational opportunities. And that this building can't do it, and neither can the work center. So this just was serendipitous that it happened to show up in my email box on Friday morning or Friday afternoon. And so I figured it was a good example of what I was talking about. So I've really enjoyed being able to participate on the fringes of this group. It's been wonderful listening to the conversations. I want to thank everybody for the time and effort you put into it. So I guess that's it.
Oh, thank you, Wendy. So Stephen and Jack, I know you asked a clarifying question, but do either of you guys have, I don't know, things you want to say or questions you'd like to pose to the group, and Barry, for yourself as well? Anything you'd like to dig into here, and then we'll take people on the stack.
The only thing I'll say is I thought the way Stark framed things and the way we might finesse that was really important. So I think that's a big takeaway for me. And of course, Wendy, I always appreciate what you have to say as well. And we'll do our best to represent that. And of course, this is only the beginning of the conversation. I don't expect it to go perfectly, but hopefully we can lay a good foundation and improve things as we go along.
Thanks.
I'll just add to Jack's comments, and I'm riffing off my own experience with interacting with the council in public session. I'll defer to Barry and to a certain extent to Michael also on how this hits from up on the dais, but I like the way we've talked today, which are in more thematic terms without going into details of the needs assessment other than the balance point, the new system kind of point. One of my senses of what the council would be interested in, not having yet read the report, had the 2 weeks to study it, is why they should pay attention to this particular report. And so to me, it would be valuable to emphasize the many dimensions that this work stands out in and is differentiated from past efforts. We spent a whole year working on this. We had a much broader cross-section of the community feeding input into it. We had really unique, I think, first time ever kind of outreach to unvoiced communities from past public policy discussions. And we had quite a diversity of views on the SAC as well. So the distillation of all this work and all this input coming into this report should lend it, in my estimation, to great deference, great weight for the council. And I'd like them to hear how deliberative, how careful the building up of this report was, so that they can give it the kind of credibility I think it deserves.
Thank you. Barry?
Yeah, boy, Stephen, you nailed it right on the head to talk about the how this report, how broad it is, how it really accomplishes that, bringing the public into the process. So thank you for that. I think that's super important to convey. I agree. And I think Stark and Jack, when they spoke of systematic and holistic, they're totally right on the number. If you remember, one of the guiding principles for this group was the council's planning principle resolution that was pretty detailed, had a number of steps in it that certainly alluded to this kind of a system that we have now gone through and refined that out of during our last year, and have come up with a much better way to say that than what that resolution did. So it's a continuation of that work. I think the council is going to be super appreciative that we grabbed a hold of that resolution and really fleshed it out and made it real, made it something that could be put as far as recommendations go. So I think I'm really encouraged to hear your input on how we should proceed to talk to the rest of the council. So great job.
Thanks, Barry. Okay, I think everybody's gone. So I've got a stack going. So we'll hear from Michael, then Arlene, then Peter. Michael, you're up. And Peter, you can put your hand out. I got you on the stack.
In terms of like broad themes, what is it we think that the county council should pay attention to? I think we should draw attention to the fact that there are some areas that receive broad support across various categories, demographics and psychographics. I'm looking on page 16 of their survey report, and only one finding in there has the word all attached to it. All respondents prioritize investing in incarceration prevention, community services, and investing in community services that provide substance abuse and mental health support. And there are several other areas having to do with the jail facility and behavioral health improvements that receive support across the board. I think that in the presentation, attention should be drawn to that.
Great point. Thanks. Arlene?
Yes, I think at the end of the last meeting and towards the beginning of this, we started to approach these larger themes, which are, what are we talking about here? And what are the proportions of what we're doing? And I remember glancing at a budget. It was a county budget. I don't remember from what era, but it was so vivid to see the contrast between the funding for law enforcement versus social services. I think it was somewhere between 2/3 or 3/4 for law enforcement and 1/3 and 1/4 for social service. I could be not quite accurate on it, but I was just struck by what that means. This is what we're talking about here, about altering the balance between the budget because it represents what we're doing and what's important to us. What we spend money on is what matters to us. And it's not, I personally don't want to withdraw any funding from law enforcement at all. I want them to have everything that they need. But I want to see the other side of the equation bumped up to a level that makes sense and permits us to close the gaps in services for our community. It's just that I've been hearing too long, too many stories of suffering. And maybe, I don't know if you need to tell the council a story about someone suffering, trying to get care for their loved one, because all of those people on that council have loved ones with issues that are similar to our community, and they can't get help either. So perhaps that would be an approach. I don't really know. And I'm not saying that I want to talk about money to the county council. I don't mean that. I'm really just saying that for our understanding of what we're doing, that is part of what we're doing. We're going to make it fairer, more and possible to do things with the funding that we're always pleading poor and saying we cannot do. We can do these things. And there is funding from other sources as well as our community. We don't have to take that approach.
Yeah, you're reminding me to, Arlene, when you say that, how, do you remember at our last meeting with the SAC, we touched on the topic of funding, and it's like, there is a big thing in the appendix on funding in different sources. And like, most of us hadn't got to the appendix. The thing is, how many pages? I looked at it today, I think we're at 100 something pages. So maybe just highlighting that, since it's a little buried. Yeah, Peter?
Everybody's making such good points. It's great. The point I'd like to make is that I think it would be important that the county council be reminded in pretty strong terms what the current state of the jail is and what it means, what's being done to people, including, prisoners and staff in our name as Whatcom County taxpayers and decision makers. And I know that they're aware to a great degree, but I hope that they have all taken a tour of the jail recently. I hope that they understand the consequences of booking restrictions in our community. And also, to extend, I think that it's important for the county council to understand what the consequences of failure would be. If this goes on again, is extended, and we have no new jail, I mean, what would our community look like? I think that would be pretty critical in introducing this, because I think that status quo is inhumane, and we do not want to see another 10 years with this jail. And what are the liabilities as well to our community? Lawsuits, for instance. So,
yeah.
Thank you.
So Holly, I just wanted to respond quickly to one thing Peter said, and that's about the, council members having seen the jail. I know several of them have definitely toured, and we did show the video in its entirety to the council to get their permission to release it to the public. And they really thought, Jack, they really thought you guys did a super good job, by the way. And they were appalled just by looking at the video. And so they are aware, but I'm going to encourage them to try to get in there so they can smell the smells and do it, in person. One other thing I think that's important, that we have a lot of our council members are data driven. So wherever we can, I think we should weave in our, we have a lot of data to offer. We have a lot of polls and a lot of things that we did. So wherever we can, when we're talking about something, we need to reinforce that with some numbers where we can. So just want to add that.
Thanks. And let's just give a shout out here to Jack and to Wendy for all the work she did in getting that jail video to happen, because that was awesome. It was an awesome piece of work. Yeah.
Well, and really Deb Slater and Wendy, the whole sheriff's department really, I just had to show up. They really did the groundwork.
Yay. Rebecca?
I was just gonna add that the video is great. I don't want to take any away from that, but being there is way more important. I think when you hear Caleb talk about trauma-informed design for the next jail, it's a game changer. And I had a couple city council members go on a tour with me, and that was definitely seeing it for yourself is huge.
Thank you, Chief, for mentioning Caleb. I don't know how I forgot to. He was awesome. Thanks.
Yeah. Good. What else feels like it's important for us to be thinking about in terms of our engagement with council? Yeah, Perry.
Oh, yeah. You know, maybe this isn't obvious, but some of the other things that folks have said, it's like, yes, it's absolutely true. And we're talking about, you know, accentuating. And I'm going to, you know, use just the component example again of behavioral health, but it certainly is true for other aspects that we've talked about. What we're doing now is not working.
Yeah.
It's not working for the individuals that are incarcerated. It's not working for the community. What we're doing at this point isn't working. And again, that may be an obvious, everybody knows that. And it's like, well, but I sort of am thinking about this frame up of where do we begin? Because there are so many important components of it. And I think that that's pretty well established by many of the, you know, individuals and their references here. So I'm thinking almost of like a starting place.
Yeah,
So-
I'm really seeing that too, Perry. That's a good point. Like what we have, I love the way you said it. Like what we're doing now is not working. Like, let's just take that as a starting point. And then maybe moving into, I don't want to design the whole thing right now, but like what Michael was saying, and we have, you know, we have a huge range of opinions here, but let's look at where we have common ground, because we actually have a lot of common ground in terms of what needs to change and what we need to do about it. And then, you know, so you kind of start off with, we have a problem and we have some common ground on how to fix it. Just, that's what I'm hearing. Yeah, David.
Bouncing off what several people are saying, including what you just said. One of the, I think if we say we have a common problem, but the SAC was sort of limited in what we could, like in the variables that we could address. So I think, you know, emphasizing what Kristen and Deborah were saying, we can't control what the prosecutor's office decides in terms of policy, et cetera, like what we could impact. And this is our proposal to impact what is available for us to impact. Something else that I don't know how this is going to be represented, but there's something really impactful to me anyway about being in the room with this group as well as the much larger group and seeing, you know, I think all of us are impacted by certain individuals. To see, for example, the chief of the jail and the chief public defender and Cliff, who has a long history at the jail, and all of these people, it's like, wow, if they're largely agreeing, I'm personally very impacted. And I think that would, I don't know how that's going to be represented in the presentation, but I hope somehow, other than just having the names on there, that there's some creative way to represent this really is an impressive group of different opinions coming together.
Yeah, we should have your all your photos up there, your faces, so they can see you're actually real people. I have to say, okay, but some of you are getting so used to how you look, like Peter, you've been in a car, I think, for the last couple of meetings, so now I just expect you to be dialing in from a car. Stark, you're always in that same chair, looking sort of pensively. It's just like, I'm gonna remember you guys just like this forever, I swear. It's cracking me up.
And I like Cliff's silhouette.
And Cliff, you're often in silhouette with
Yeah.
your big headphones. Here we all are, just, it's great. It's really fun. Okay, so what else? Any other good advice? Oh gosh, things that things could go awry where we want to think ahead a little bit.
Well, all right. Thank you, everybody, for taking yet another hour out of your busy schedules for us. And gosh, we appreciate you so much. And keep your fingers crossed. Keep us in your thoughts next week, and we will go out there and move this forward.
And people can come watch, right, Barry? It's an open public meeting. So if you guys can come, just having you there would be excellent too, I think.
It'll be sometime in the later afternoon, like around 2:33, somewhere in that vicinity. They'll have the schedule out in the next 2 days. So
Okay. Yeah, a couple of closing comments, Kristen, and then Perry. Oh, Kristen, you're muted.
Sorry, I lowered my hand but didn't unmute. I was just wondering, Barry, or does anybody know how much time do you have to make this presentation? Like how many minutes is allotted for this?
whatever we need. I get to set the time because I'm the chair of the council. So we'll just figure out once we're done. I'd say Thursday we'll be wrapped up with the presentation on our planning meeting, and we'll know exactly. And we'll be fine on time though. It's going to be probably going to be a good hour for the whole thing, I would think, close to it anyway.
All right, that's realistic. All right.
But we won't be short on time. We're the last committee of the day too, so we don't have to worry about that.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Perry?
I was just curious about the final copy of the needs assessment. No pressure intended, truly. I just want to go to the site as soon as it's going to be available and pull it up. I'm excited about that. So I don't know when that will be.
Marty, you're muted.
I
Mhm.
I believe that it's going to be by noon tomorrow, Perry.
Didn't mean to make you say it in front of everybody, Marty, just.
Well, that's what we're aiming for. And I think we're going to succeed.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks so much for your work.
And wait till you guys see it. Wait till you see it. You are going to feel so proud. You're going to feel so proud when you see it. It's really beautiful.
And I want to just chime in.
Mm-hmm.
Often I don't even look at appendices and stuff. Please look at the appendices, because that is where you just see this mammoth amount of accumulated work that this group did over a year. Like every one of those meetings, every one of those polls, every report. It's really pretty great.
Yeah. Hey, gang, I think that's it.
All right, everybody.
Valuable.
Have a great week, and we will be in touch.